Thank you, John. So let me begin with a poll. There aren't too many of you, so this is going to be statistically insignificant, but still, imagine that you are a math professor, all right? So you have to choose one of these as your medium for teaching. Now there are 4 options here. The chalkboard, A, transparencies using the overhead projector, B, and Keynote or PowerPoint, that sort of thing, with a computer, C. And this is a document camera, which allows you to write on a piece of paper and have things projected to the screen. So I would like to see which of you would choose A. So imagine you're a math prof. Okay, I have a count of 1. What about B? Anyone would opt for B? No, 0. C? Okay, 1. And D? 2. All right, so looks like this seems to be the preferred choice, even though it's just by a margin of 1. Now, let's switch role and imagine that you are a student in a math class. Which of these would you want the prof to use? Okay, keeping in mind all the possibilities that you can have, for example, with slides. All right, so if you prefer A as a student, please raise your hand. All right, we have a 1. B? Anybody? No, 0. So it has fallen out of fashion, it seems. PowerPoint or Keynote. 4. Ooh. How about D? Anybody? 1. All right. So the point of this poll, I hope, is to illustrate that there's a certain disparity between the user and between someone using on one end and the other end with the consuming side. And in fact, there are also factors that are relevant in choosing any of these. Now, for example, when you have a projector that is not very bright, it might be better to use something else, right? So, in fact, there is a 5th option that I haven't listed here, and what I'm using right now, what I'm currently using right now, is actually none of these. Okay, even though I'm using a laptop, it's actually none of these options, and I'm going to get to that later. And for the next half hour, I'm going to talk about a few issues that I encountered as I wrote my app. That basically is what you see right in front of you. All right, as you can see, I can annotate over this. So the issues that I want to discuss through telling my story are these 3 things. So I'm going to look at evaluation, creation, and adoption of education technology. So the first point is evaluation. How do you evaluate teaching technology? When investing in a particular classroom technology, my belief is that it has to satisfy needs first. Sometimes there are latest fads that are very popular, and I know some instructors are very into using the latest stuff. But for me, I feel that my time is limited, so I have to make sure that it does what I need first before it does what I want. And here is a picture of a chalkboard. Now, I would bet that most professors, mathematics professors, still prefer to use something like this. If not a chalkboard, a whiteboard. And that's certainly the case in my department. More than half of my colleagues are still using just this and nothing else. And there might be a reason for that. But if you look at what is on the board, what is on the picture, if you have to teach something like that, do you feel a need to use something else other than the chalkboard? Okay, so that might be the kind of thinking that math profs are going through in their head, when they are looking at some other options. I have to do this. Is there a better way than just using the chalkboard? Now, the chalkboard actually worked for me for many years, and I really got familiar with the chalkboard. But starting about 2 years ago, I started to feel that some of the limitations I encountered with chalkboard to be intolerable, or at least they really bothered me. So these are the things that I really did not like about the chalkboard. No matter how hard I try, I'm always in the line of sight of some student. All right, I cannot make myself invisible. That's one thing that really bothered my students. Sometimes I see evaluations, they say, Prof, can you, move away so we can see, or not write so fast so we can copy. So that's number one. The other thing is I can't really save what I have written on the board for later retrieval. So I put up a theorem, say 30 minutes later, I need to refer to the theorem again, it'll be gone because I need a board space for something else. And sometimes I just run out of space in a corner and I'm stuck, no way to move it. And drawing things like a circle, straight lines, even straight lines are quite challenging on a chalkboard. Of course, there are tools you can use, but those are clunky. So that's number two. Now, I have taught in a really large classroom, and I noticed that when you use the chalkboard in a large classroom, you have to write really large using those sidewalk chalk. And it is really difficult to maneuver. So I find it to be quite ineffective in large classrooms because I tend to write small and not very strong. And fourth is every time I finish a lecture, I'm always having my chalk dust all over my pens and my hands, sometimes on my forehead. And some people actually eventually develop chalk allergy. So that is a concern. Now, of course, you can use a whiteboard instead, but then there's the smell from the, those markers. And number five is actually quite physically draining because you have to write at the top and then sometimes at the bottom. And then if you're in a classroom where you can move the board up and down, those things are heavy. All right, well, they are not always well oiled. So those are the things that I noticed that really bothered me. And in fact, the issue about math professors preferring chalk turned out to be an interesting research problem for one of my colleagues at Carleton University. So Natasha Atemeva is a professor in the School of Linguistics and let's see, and Language Studies. She actually currently holds a $100,000 5-year SSHRC grant to study the phenomenon of why math professors in particular, all over the world, tend to use chalk when it is known to be not quite effective. Okay, so that is her research project, and this is a QR code for the link to talk about some of that talks about some of the research. So if you go to the article, you can read more about the project. Now that I don't really like the chalkboard, I need to find something to replace it. Now, if you want to replace the chalkboard, what would you use? So is there a way to maintain the benefits of the chalkboard, whatever they are, without any of these problems? All right, so does anyone have any suggestion? If you don't want to use a chalkboard and you don't want any of these problems, what would you be using? Any idea? Any want? All right, so this is what I end up using. Tablet PC, and this is the option that I didn't list. All right, so it's actually quite common now among math professors to use a tablet PC instead of the chalkboard because it allows you to write, like on a piece of paper, and you can, save it, which of course you cannot do with a chalkboard. So I end up choosing this combination, Tablet PC with Classroom Presenter 3. So Classroom Presenter 3 is a software written in .NET for Windows. And it allows you to have a whiteboard in a presenter mode. What that means is you actually look at a different screen from the one that the student sees. So you have access all the tools in front of you, whereas the student doesn't see any of those tools. All the student sees is the whiteboard. So you can actually make notes hide somewhere in the corner and then work out a calculation and then move that up for the student to see. So I really like that. But then, and I thought that was the magic bullet that I was looking for. But I soon discovered some issues with using tablet PC. Now, these issues have nothing to do with the app itself. It's not the fault of Classroom Presenter 3. But the hardware side of things, there are some things that I didn't like about tablet PC. So I asked you to look at this picture and see if you feel that there's anything unusual. Yes.
I assume the students are
Right, so first of all, you see the students are actually using a tablet PC and they can annotate on the screen. Now, if you look at the way they annotate the screen, is it the normal usage of a tablet PC? So do you see people mostly walking around with a tablet PC like that when they write? They usually have it folded up, right? If it's at the desk, they would normally have the screen facing up, right? But not like this, right? Now, the question is, why would these people, including the instructor up here, do this kind of thing when the normal way of using a tablet PC is to actually fold it down? My guess is if you ever want to chat away on Facebook or whatever, or Twitter, you wouldn't want to fold it down because you want access to a keyboard. And this is precisely the position that I found myself wanting to do in a lecture when I want to, say, demonstrate some computations on MATLAB or Maple, or when I need to fire some terminal command. Because the only other way to do this is to actually have an external Bluetooth keyboard or whatever, so I can just type faster. Because otherwise, when the screen is down, you lose access to the keyboard. And the other things that I found troublesome with working with a tablet PC is glare. So what I noticed very soon after starting using is when I fold it down, I can see the ceiling light, even though it's an anti-glare screen. So I always had to do this in order to see what I write. So that was a problem. And the comfort level is also not very high. Because the stylus that comes with the tablet PC, I had a Lenovo X201. It's very light and very thin, and I'm used to heavy pen. So writing became a difficulty for me. And the screen is also very hard. So when you write on it, you can hear clicking, and then it's very slippery as well. So those are the issues that I found to be a bit annoying. But then, there didn't seem to be any other solution. So, and the other thing one thing about the Classroom Presenter 3 is it has a great whiteboard, but what it doesn't do is it doesn't let you stream application windows. So you are in a presenter mode for the whiteboard. Now, if you want to demonstrate your MATLAB or Maple, you have to go back to mirror desktop, desktop mirroring. And so you have to come in and out of that, and it becomes a hassle. So I was hoping to find something that will actually allow me to stream application windows to the external projector so that I can maintain my whiteboard in presenter mode. But I couldn't find anything like that. I actually searched for a few weeks and nothing came close. So I ended up doing something rather unusual for a math prof, I would say, to actually write my own app. So what I needed was, I need to have a presenter mode with a whiteboard capability and streaming application windows at the same time. So first I had to decide on the platform. I looked at Windows, Mac, and Linux, and decided on the Mac, primarily for the excellent APIs for the supporting graphics and PDF. Every other platform like Linux and Windows require me to use a third-party APIs. And ObjectiveC was very hot. I mean, it's still very hot. I mean, everybody wants to be iPhone, Mac OS developer these days. So I just wanted to see what the big deal is. Like, is it hard to learn? My background actually is in C and C++. So after about 6 months, a working beta version was completed. And I demoed it to a few people at the Education Development Center at Carleton. And I made it available for free for all Carleton faculty. So the app is now on App Store, is at version 2.1. And it has many more features than the very first version. Now, creating what you need can also happen at a much larger scale. So this is just an example of a personal creation. But I want to mention something that University of Minnesota Rochester did. So they actually developed their own learning management system. So they didn't pull anything off the shelf, whether it's proprietary or open source. And they call it ICEO, which was developed by a team, including professors and graduate students at that time. The reason I asked them why they did that, well, the reason why they did it was because this university has a very unusual program. It emphasized heavily on online collaborative or even real-time collaborative learning. And they couldn't find anything that really met their needs. So they decided to write their own thing instead of using Moodle, Blackboard, Desire to Learn, etc. And I think that from these examples, it is quite encouraging that building your own tools is not that difficult anymore. Well, I mean, you still need to know a bit about computers, but for basic stuff, you have all kinds of things. As a professor, I can have use Google Course Builder, which allows me to build an interactive online course using the tools there. Of course, I need to know some HTML and JavaScript, but all the tools are there. It's not like what it was like 2-3 years ago, where it would be very difficult for anyone who is not an IT professional to build anything like that. And of course, there are always students eager to be engaged in a project, so they can tell their future employers what they have done while they are studying. All right. Now, I want to talk about adoption. And there are things that I feel strongly recently. And part of the problem comes from that no one seemed to care about my app. So, as I mentioned, the app that I wrote is free for everyone in Carleton, but not for everyone else. And at that time, I thought that there might be colleagues who felt the same way as I did about Chalkboard. Okay, all this messiness, blocking student view, not being able to save. And I gave 2 presentations in my school department, and I thought that there would be at least 1 or 2 people interested in this. I mean, it's free, right? It doesn't hurt. It turns out that only 2 people that I know of are using this at Carleton. One is from the business school. The other one is from geography. So that's the bad news side of things. But the good news is that somehow, for some reason, this app has been discovered by people in over a dozen countries. So there are about 30 users all over the world these days. And they are primarily from Europe. So the adoption for my app is rather low. I guess there are a number of reasons for that. And let me just illustrate one of them. Okay, so this is another poll. Before I ask this question, how many of you actually have used both versions of Office 2003 and Office 2007? Okay, good. How many of you actually willingly upgraded from Office 2003 to 2007? All right. Now, I asked that question because 2007, Office 2007 is the first time the so-called ribbon interface was introduced. And I remember reading at that time on Tech News that there was a lot of negative feedback on the ribbon interface. Now, the thing is, I also read that some UI guru saying that the ribbon interface is actually great. So what was the problem? Well, the problem was kind of mentioned in this paper, is that it's not a problem. The ribbon interface was not the problem. The problem was power users from the old system were so used to the system that they couldn't really adapt to the ribbon interface. Now, of course, over time, by now it's been 6 years. I'm sure much of the complaint has died down. But the fact is, there were people so used to the old system that they just couldn't get their way around the new interface. Okay, and this paper actually says that the user new users didn't really complain about the ribbon interface. They were able to do the assigned task in the tests and studies. So I guess the moral of the story is many people, including myself, because I did gripe about it at that time, prefer the devil that they know. So the question is, how do you convert people from using the chalkboard to using something like this? All right. So handwriting is a very fundamental thing. Every one of us started learning handwriting since we are in grade school. So I was not convinced that this is that hard. I myself learned it, but I wasn't sure. So I did some tests. informal test. So you see two pictures here. On the left is a beaver, and on the right is a butterfly. Now, the picture on the left was drawn by a web graphic designer at one of the Ontario colleges, who has had no experience drawing with an external pen tablet. So he did that after a few minutes. So I asked them, just try to write a few things, and he drew the thing. And I couldn't believe it. I thought he just downloaded from the web. And then he said he drew it. On the right is a picture by my daughter 2 years ago when she was 6. And she had no problem adjusting to the external tablet. And she, in fact, liked it so much that she wouldn't let me use it much for my testing. So I actually had to stop her from doing that since then. So she really enjoyed it. But it's still difficult to convince people to use this kind of thing. And for many people, it's just unthinkable to write here and look in the screen. All right, so I think that's one of the reasons why people didn't really want to try my app, even though it was free. Now, more generally, when you look at adoption, what are the possible solutions? Well, I listed 5 here that I can think of, coercion being number 1, because that's how I feel at Carleton. A lot of times, we are just told, okay, 2 weeks from now, we'll switch over to a new system. We will have training sessions for you, but that's it, you have no choice. It might seem that way, even though it was not the intention of the management to impose new system, because sometimes things get 5 minutes. Yeah. Sometimes things get outdated, right? Or they need a different solution. But sometimes that's how I feel, that we seem to be stuck with whatever we're given. But I think much of this could be alleviated if there's more of number 5, where education goes both ways, where IT staff could help users understand technology better, and the other way around, where users could actually communicate what their workflow is like. I think these conversations can really help to find solutions that truly work for both sides. And so I'm just going to end by saying that, throughout this experience, I've learned a lot from the IT side of things, because as a developer, I actually had to think about, well, what other people really needed. Because now I'm supporting 30, 40 users of my app. Creation is always on my mind, because there are always tools that seem to be written for someone other than math professors. A lot of the tools that are out there that I see seem to be more geared towards people in business or some other areas. And adoption is always one of those million-dollar questions. How to get people to buy your app as opposed to someone else. So that's an interesting question that I will have to explore in some other ways. All right, so that's the QR code to the link to my app. And I think we have some time for questions. And if you want to try, using it right away here, you're welcome to. And I have a redeem code, some redeem codes for the app. That means you can have it for free if you want to try it. So you just go to App Store, type this in, and it will automatically download it to your Mac. All right, and if you need more than one, I think I can give you more than one. You use a Mac, right? Yeah, you have a Mac, so yeah. Sure, I can give you one more if you want. Yes. Yeah. So, first of all, are there any specific questions about the content of the presentation? Afterwards, I can demonstrate a few things that I talked about but didn't really illustrate. Yes.
What is a Blackboard good for?
I mean, Chalkboard. Yeah, it's just convenient. Sometimes I can just bring a chalk, or even no chalk. I can just walk in like this and start teaching. Right. Yeah. That. Right. So.
So you have 3 or 4 different screens there that can move stuff across.
Right. So that indeed is one advantage of the Blackboard. But I always have been assigned to rooms where there are only 2 small boards. So Now, the thing with screens is, okay, so let me demonstrate a few things here. One of the things that you cannot do with a Blackboard is this, all right? So suppose I write really small, all right? Right, but when you write larger, you're stuck, right? So in this case, let me just write something here. Or say E equals MC squared, all right? Now, if I want to make this bigger or smaller, I can, all right? So that's one way you can show more content. Now, if you need to refer it later, you can just blow it up like that. So that's one of the things that you can do here, which you cannot quite do if you're using Keynote, for example. So it takes input from the external tablet. So I'm writing on this, and so because it's a Mac, Apple doesn't make any tablet PC, right? So that's the only way you can really input handwriting is to use one of these things. And that is one of the hurdle to using this, because you really need to get trained to write like this and look at the screen like that. So I can easily draw a straight line here. I mean, you can't really do this easily on a Blackboard, right? I mean, I can easily draw a pentagon, right? That's kind of difficult to do quickly on a chalkboard. So some of the advantages of this app is it allows you to draw figures very quickly. So if I want a circle in red, I can, not a circle, this is not a circle, this is a circle. Right? That's the kind of thing that is really difficult to do quickly on a chalkboard. And sometimes I have to draw a lot of figures in class, which really slows me down, because the students can just do this and then they're done. Whereas it would take me a few minutes just to draw a nice diagram. So that, I mean, until you're right, until that we get like multiple screens, well, the app actually supports up to 5 screens. So if you have 5 screens across, you can use it to control each screen separately. I have used it for 2 screens, so it works with 2 screens. Yeah, so so I can do this, right? Yeah, so I can save it, and yeah, and yeah, talk about streaming, right? So how do I do a streaming? See, let me load up video. Let's see. Do I have a? I need to figure out. Do I have a video here? Let's see. So yeah, okay. Let me try to capture a video here. So I can show a video. I'm using a 6 frames per second right now, just to well, not to text this thing too heavily, but I can go back to my slides just like that. So I can go back to my slides and I go back to the video. So there's an instant switching between different sources, and of course a video is no more special than a PDF in this case, because I can let me just play that again. So I can draw over it. All right, so it just treats it as the same as a PDF. How do you have to set it up here. So you actually look at what windows are open, and then you actually can choose which window you want to stream to the external display. So you have a choice. So it pops up. So if you have like 5 windows right on the screen, it will show you an option of 5 screens, and then you just select and then you just say stream. Then you get this. Right. Yeah. So let me try that. So suppose I want to show you something else. Say my cryptos. Okay. Yeah. So I can show you my. So this is actually a text edit at the application window for text edit, and if I want to show you the things that I type here, okay, something here, I can do that, and if I want to zoom in, well, because it's kind of small, right? I can easily do that here. So you don't really have to magnify your desktop to do this. I get to see everything else. Now, the nice thing about using this is I can check my email while students are copying things, for example, because they wouldn't know. Well, they would know that I'm doing something else, but they wouldn't know that I'm doing email instead of thinking about the next step. Yeah, so right now it exposed to PDF. So if you have say a video, right? And the unfortunate thing is it only the moment you click save, it just captures the frame that it shows. So that's the limitation. So it doesn't save as a Keynote file where you can actually have an embedded video in it, right? But because I don't use video that much, usually it's just enough to capture what's on the screen. And if I really need to show the video, I usually just upload the video separately. So that's how I use it. But everything is PDF. And if I want to come back later, say I write a bunch of stuff, next year I want to use the same slide, I can start from what I've written and just modify on top. So all the strokes are saved as strokes. So they're remembered. So you can actually later erase them and correct them. So that's what I do. Sometimes I make mistakes in lectures. So before I upload them, I just correct them and then upload a corrected version. So unlike some tools where you draw it and then it's stuck, it's pixel, right? Pixel based. Some of the writing apps anyway, they are pixel based. Yeah. Any other questions, suggestions? I'm open to suggestions. I have made it very cheap for a period of time. Yeah. Yeah, that increased the download by about a factor of 10. Yeah. Yes.
I think the problem is.
Right, but you will have to show your desktop, right?
I can show the desktop, but I can swap between desktops.
Right, so that's the thing. I don't want to show my desktop because I have certain things. Suppose I'm using my crypt notes, right? I'm reading.
No, I don't have to show it. I don't have to.
Yeah. So how do you draw a circle or a pentagon?
I have to have a wave on top of it.
Right. So you're annotating PDF, but how do you stream a maple in the middle of a session?
I swap to another.
Right. So
Maple, right?
that's something that I didn't want to do because I didn't.
That's a problem if I can already do that.
Well, this because this suits my workflow a bit better. So right now, I mean, it's just announced today that OS 10 is going to support multiple displays with spaces. Before that, I mean, you couldn't do that. This will allow you to control 5 different displays simultaneously and independently. Before, when you swipe to a different space, the whole set of screen will move. So, I mean, the new OS is going to change that, but before that, I mean, you didn't have that option. So if you have 2 displays, then when you do a swipe, then the whole thing moves, right? Right, and some of the hand annotating tools is really optimized for drawing things very quickly. It's something that you have to use to see the difference. After all, a lot of it is a matter of taste, and I do agree with that because I have used other apps, and every app basically has the philosophy of the designer. And if it doesn't match yours, it becomes quite difficult to work with, as I have noticed. So it's obvious that this works with my philosophy because I wrote it, but it probably means that it will not be suitable for someone else who is used to another way to work. All right, so when is the next session? Because I do have a next session to go to. Yeah. All right, so thank you for coming. For those of you who will be trying to use this, if you want to give me feedback, I would greatly appreciate it. All right.